Las Vegas Grand Prix is coming, and I really can't get hyped for it. Unless it's this Ferrari Vegas special. At first, I wasn't particularly enamored with the design since it seemed very basic on first glance. But when you stand back and look at it for a second, there are a lot more details here which make it more nuanced. But it just makes me wince that white splodge on the side pod where Siva Logistics is, that could have been red the entire time, instead of being that weird black carbon fiber splodge. But I'll tell you one thing, that stripe motif that it's got going throughout the entire car, I really like that. As well as the lettering on the side pod with the driver's name on it, it looks very, very classy. And it is a very classic tribute to Ferrari designs over the years, specifically from the 1970s. Clay Regazzoni, Niki Lauda, and also the livery is a little bit of a nod to the 1971 Ferrari that Mario Andretti drove. I think this will work very well under the likes of Vegas. It's going to look really classy, and I'm glad that Ferrari's getting into the spirit of it, and I'm pretty sure that many other teams are going to have Vegas specials. If McLaren doesn't, I will be very disappointed considering the amount of special liveries they've had this year. But I don't think it's as good as the Monza livery, where you have the yellow, the tribute to the Le Mans victory. That really needs to be the standard Ferrari F1 livery now, and if you agree with me, be sure to like the video. As for the race suits though, they're really not doing it for me, especially the motif on the back. I get they're supposed to look like casino chips or something, but it just really seems out of place and a little too small. But hey, good on them for getting Shell to comply with the overall design, because Shell's been very inflexible about that, because if you look at the 2022 race suits, they got the red square with the Shell logo on it on top of the black. It completely ruins the look. Sometimes you get sponsors that don't really play ball, and Shell's one of them. So the race suits to me just really give off a sense of midness, like my feelings about the upcoming Las Vegas Grand Prix. I cannot get excited for it. Yes, this isn't my preview and predictions video for the race, but I needed to dedicate a whole video to this matter because it's really been bothering me. Now, it's not me being a typical Brit and complaining about, oh my god, I gotta get up so early, 6:30. Oh, it's too early for me. I'm a bit of a lark, I can easily get up early, that's no problem. I really feel bad for the East Coasters. 1 AM race start? And this is meant to be for the Americans. What's the logic here? I don't get it. But hey, at least the Australian contingent, which there seems to be a lot of here on this channel, they're going to be having a mid-afternoon race start, so bonza. I really have got the feeling that F1's really not thought this race through. Even the likes of Ross Brawn has mentioned that they probably didn't think this through. I think F1's going to have similar calamities that the 1981 Caesar's Palace Grand Prix had, which was held in the casino's parking lot, and many of the drivers complained about heat exhaustion, neck pains from the constant turns from the anti-clockwise configuration, and an overall track map which looks like a hand that's recoiling after putting it in really hot water. It's just, ow! Look at that. It looks like a clawed hand. If you look at some of the pictures, you wouldn't even know it's in Vegas. At least the current Vegas Grand Prix looks like it's Vegas, but the track itself isn't all that inspiring. It looks like a comatose animal. Most people think a pig, but I see a bear, because it makes me grizzly every time I have to look at it. And oh yes, we are getting corner names again. You notice that at recent tracks that have come onto the F1 calendar, we don't really get names for corners anymore? These names aren't much better. Some of these names are very soulless. And I'm aware that sometimes we've seen this before, like the station hairpin in Monaco. That makes sense. It's located right next to it. But Top Golf for the final corner, Turn 6 for the MSG Sphere, you know, that thing that has an emoji face on it that you've seen in your TikToks, that's lost about nearly $100 million since opening, and the CFO's quit after just a month of operation. Not even U2 could save that location. Then there's Turn 12, the Fashion Show Mall. Wow. I'm not making these up, by the way. Go to the Wikipedia page. These are the legit names. And oh yes, the prospect of seeing the Bellagio fountain go off as Formula One cars go by, like we see in the Sky Sports opening intro. No, we're not going to get that. No. Because there's not a guarantee whether they'll even be operational. And all the construction that's been going around, you really won't be able to have easy access to those fountains, or whether or not they'll even be functional and going off at the time of Max Verstappen going by. Not to mention for the fact that the palm trees outside the Bellagio have not only been trimmed back, they've been removed entirely, and there's no real guarantee whether or not they will be replaced. We've got 10 years of this. I'm going to feel really sorry for all of the pedestrians at the height of summer. There's not going to be any natural cover of just being able to bivouac under the trees, the Venetian Hotel. One of its famous features is having a river outside of it, with gondolas. It looks very much like Venice, or the Vegas interpretation of Venice. But you know what happened to it? It's been drained. No, not for maintenance, but to host a hospitality tent. One of the biggest landmarks in Vegas is now a hospitality suite to score some more money. First the Bellagio and now this, oh my goodness. And then, of course, all of the stuff that hotels nearby, they've had extortionate prices. But going back to those naming rights for the corners, I mean, it's just going to be sounding so soulless. I guess Formula One's got to make back some of the money that it's reportedly been losing. F1's having to stomach ballooning costs for the event, which are in the tens of millions of dollars being over budget now. This wasn't rumored, this was admitted in their shareholder event. Then there's a situation regarding even attending the event. You thought Miami was bad with all of those really weird prices? Hotel rates and general tickets were so expensive initially, but now prices have fallen like a stone right before the event. And understandably, people who booked hotels for the event months ago are not exactly happy and are demanding refunds because they want a better rate. But there's no guarantee they would get their hotel room back and it will immediately been swallowed up again. So people planning to go to Vegas months ago and then want a refund, they probably won't be able to make it. And then they've got plane tickets. And then, of course, there's the issue about places that are not refundable. I feel really sorry for those folks. They probably forked out thousands of dollars, whereas now people who just waited until last minute might only have to pay not much more than the average rate of a weekend in Vegas, outside of the Grand Prix. What's going on here? And to top this all off, a lot of the drivers who have been really excited to be even going to Vegas aren't really all that familiar with what the track looks like. Max Verstappen, during the Brazilian Grand Prix press conferences, said that he's really not had a look at the track yet, and the times that he even has tried it out in the F1 game, which by the way he's a brand ambassador for, he kept bumping off the straights and all of the walls, and he was just finding it really hard to find out where he was even going. Same goes for Daniel Ricciardo, who's another draw for the F1 game. Once again, it's an anti-clockwise configuration, like the original Vegas Grand Prix. And of course, we may not have issues with neck strain or anything like that, because F1 cars are a lot safer, but there will be other things to contend with, due to the fact that it's looking like it's going to be the coldest Grand Prix in F1's history. The last time we got close to these sort of temperatures that are being predicted was the 1978 Canadian Grand Prix, where it got to about 5 degrees. And you may think, well, that's not so bad. Well, the last time that F1 drove cars in this modern era where it even got close to those temperatures was the 2018 Barcelona test, where it was snowing. Funny story, by the way. 2 weeks after I passed my driving test, I wanted to go up to see the Silverstone test in 2005, but it was snowing. And I wanted to back out, but my dad made me drive all the way up to Silverstone in the snow and passing upturned cars, and my dad just responding, oops. And then we get there, sure enough, they're not testing, we drove all the way back. That's the last time I associated Formula One with snow. I'm pretty sure the drivers will have a good time though, because they'll be going to countless events. They'll be going to loads of things that are set out by sponsors and F1 itself. They're going to have a great time. Whether or not they'll actually have a little bit of a tipple or two, that remains to be seen, but that didn't stop Max Verstappen going to win the Qatar Grand Prix after getting his third title. But I don't think they're really going to be having a good time actually driving the track. And this is coming off the back of Daniel Ricciardo taking 98% of the credit that we're even driving in Vegas in the first place. Him apparently having been lobbying for F1 to go to Vegas since 2017 when Liberty Media took over. So this has been something that Daniel's been very excited for. I'll be very curious to see what his comments are when we actually go racing there. But needless to say, Vegas is going to be cold, which is to be expected because it's mid-November in the middle of a desert. All of the other night races that we've had take place in countries where it has to be driven at night, or else people will melt, like we saw in the 2005 Bahrain Grand Prix, which was the hottest Formula One race on record at 42.5 degrees Celsius, where the drivers could barely function. You thought Qatar was bad. Bahrain was even worse. At least Qatar was at night. But going back to what I said earlier about the idea of Liberty Media not thinking things through, Ross Brawn has now gone on record confirming that in the initial forays into a potential Las Vegas Grand Prix, the organisers really didn't take into account that maybe Vegas can get a little bit cold going into the winter. He doesn't work for Formula One anymore. He is busy promoting the Brawn documentary on Disney+, so anything he says right now is going to be incredibly relevant and people will actually care what he's got to say. Back in 2022, the organisers were dealing with a problem, according to Brawn, which was to do with temperatures and the Pirelli rubber not really being tested thoroughly in those kind of conditions. Understandably, since most tracks that they go to in the F1 calendar don't really go below 15 degrees air temperature. Andrew Shovlin from Mercedes then went to say, if you're getting towards 5, 6, 7 degrees, that's considered winter testing. And like I said, the last time Formula One got close to that was back in Barcelona 2018. We've not been anywhere near that since. Brawn say that Pirelli have now done some testing and they're bringing their softest rubber to Vegas, so expect the C5, C4, C3s. So what we can expect here are some very aggressive setups that will require a huge amount of downforce. But then there's the kicker, the long 1.2 mile straight, which is the Las Vegas Strip. Too much downforce, you are going to be revving the engine like crazy. You are going to be bottoming out, which is why I think Mercedes aren't going to have a good time here. They are going to be buffeting. Oh my goodness, they're going to have to raise the ride height to make sure they don't wear out the plank. You thought Brazil was going to be bad. I think that Mercedes are going to have a terrible time here. They'll be lucky to score points, quite frankly. And hey, you know what? What will be really funny? Haas may actually score a point because they've been having problems of lighting the tyres up too quickly and chewing the tyres out really, really rapidly, not even getting anywhere near the prospect of points, which could be very critical considering that their protest about the Austin Grand Prix failed because there was no new evidence and the FIA understandably threw it out. That's how desperate Haas are right now to score points. They can't win them on the track. Litigate. From an audience's perspective, all of this unpredictability and uncertainty and the prospect of teams that usually do very well not doing so well here, the jeopardy of the event might be really exciting and make up for the shortfall of the lack of hype going into the event. When we actually see the cars racing, it may completely change our sentiment regarding the whole thing. But the build-up towards this event has been nothing but shocking and really, really unorganized, and they really didn't think this through. We've got 10 years of this, folks, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't see through Liberty Media the entire 10-year spell. I think we'll get 2 or 3 years in, and then eventually it'll be quite clear that it's not a profitable event, and people are not excited about it anymore, since the US interest in Formula One has peaked and is sort of on the decline. So this was probably 2 years too late, I think, for Formula One. I wouldn't be surprised in FP1 that we see a lot of spins going down because all the drivers will be on tippy toes and not quite sure about how to deal with the green track, the really cold temperatures, and running the soft tyres, maybe for a few laps just to get a representative qualifying lap in. And the hard tyres, the C3s, forget it. And if it rains, which it could do, well, it's just going to be like racing on ice or something like that. I mean, oh my goodness. But everyone says that Albon and Williams might do well, maybe, but we'll have to wait and see here. It depends on whether or not they can light up the tyres. But I don't know. I may completely change my mind this time next week, but I might not. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I'd like to know about whether or not you're excited for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. But I certainly have my doubts. Much like I have my doubts about whether or not Haas will be able to keep Nico Hülkenberg for the foreseeable future, which you can find out more about as to the real reason why they lodged that protest in Austin.